Yet I broke down in her mansion, which looked like a garbage dump. As a germophobic thief with 6 backups, I couldn't help cleaning her home all afternoon. Then I casually pocketed 1,895 yuan as payment for my hard work. But the moment I picked up my bowl at a noodle shop, the police grabbed me by the shoulder. To my surprise, Zhiqiu not only signed a letter of forgiveness on the spot, she also asked me out for meals and shopping every day afterward. Every time, she insisted on paying, until that glass of red wine slid down my throat. When I opened my eyes the next day, I finally understood. I was already in the palm of her hand. My name is Zhang. I make my living with my lock-picking skills, but I have never used those skills for anything honest. Back in my hometown, my elderly mother relies on medicine every day. The little money I make every month cannot even begin to cover that bottomless hospital bill. When a man is pushed to the edge of a cliff, he has no energy left to worry about dignity. This time, my target was apartment 1704 in an upscale complex on the west side of town. The homeowner was named Zhiqiu. Her skin was as smooth as cream, and her features looked painted. Even her name carried an aloof, unworldly chill. I watched her for the full weeks beforehand. Her schedule ran like clockwork. 9 to 6, a perfectly ordinary office worker. Targets like her were profitable and low risk. She was the perfect easy mark, tailor-made for me. Today was the day to make my move. I followed her to the entrance of her building and watched her graceful figure disappear into the underground garage. I silently counted for a full 10 minutes, making sure she would not come back unexpectedly. Only then did I lower my cap and stroll upstairs without a care. My tool slipped smoothly into the lock. I flicked my wrist a few times. Click. The door swung open. I slipped inside sideways and quietly shut the door behind me. The whole move was smooth and effortless. Then, the next second, a rancid stench of leftover takeout, sour mildew from unwashed clothes, and the lingering scent of some perfume formed a bizarre mixture. It hit me full in the face. I froze in the entryway, nearly thinking I'd broken into the wrong apartment and wandered into a garbage transfer station. I know plenty of young people keep messy homes, but for a place to be this messy, even I, Zhang, who thought I'd seen it all, after all my years on the streets, was seeing something new. Clothes were piled high on the sofa. You could not tell at all which ones were still clean and which had already been worn dirty. Takeout containers teetered in stacks on the coffee table. They still held unfinished food. Some had even started growing mold. There was nowhere to step on the floor. Snack bags, cosmetic bottles, and jars, and torn open delivery boxes lay everywhere. I even wondered whether her feet ever touched the floor at home. Maybe she floated around on clouds. Could this really be the home of a goddess named Zhiqiu? Where was that heavenly aura? Had the air in this place completely swallowed it up? Whatever professional principles I had were instantly drowned by overwhelming physical disgust. The germaphobe in my bones could not tolerate a place this filthy. A nameless fury surged inside me. What a beautiful apartment. It had excellent cross-ventilation, with tasteful decor. How had she turned it into a pigsty? Fine. You win. The stealing could wait. Until I made this place fit for human habitation, I could not find a single damn spot to stand and steal from. If word got out, it would disgrace my entire profession. I dropped my tool bag by the door, rolled up my sleeves, and got to work. Before I knew it, it was 4:30 in the afternoon. I, Zhang, a reasonably handsome man, with a six-pack built through years of hard labor, a fit, stylish thief, in Zhiqiu's luxury apartment, sweating buckets as an unpaid cleaner. I cleared the trash, wiped the tables, and mopped the floors. I sorted those apparently expensive clothes by type. The ones to hang, I hung. The ones that needed washing, I sent out to be cleaned. The dishes soaking in the kitchen sink were practically growing mushrooms. Cosmetic bottles lay scattered across the bathroom counter. I cursed to myself as I worked. This job was more exhausting than picking 10 locks. By the time I finally tied up the last trash bag, dusk had fallen outside. I looked over the completely transformed living room. The floor gleamed brightly enough to reflect a person. Everything was put away in perfect order. Only the faint lemony scent of detergent remained in the air. I let out a long breath. A ridiculous sense of accomplishment rose within me. I was exhausted. Fucking exhausted. I wandered into her bedroom to look for something valuable. There was some loose cash and jewelry in the nightstand drawer. After searching through it, there was not much cash. Just 1,895 yuan in total. Clutching that stack of bills, I finally felt a little more balanced. Fine, I'll count it as my damn labor fee. Though it was nowhere near fair compensation for all that labor. I found a sticky note and left her a message in what I considered dashing handwriting. Such a nice home. And look what you've done to it. Even a thief like me couldn't stand it. I started cleaning when you left for work. It took all day to finish. I am completely wiped out. I'll take the loose cash in your drawer as payment. If you truly do not have the time in the future, remember to hire a cleaner. I slapped that note, full of indignation and professional concern, onto the coffee table. I pocketed the 1,895 yuan I'd taken as payment, picked up my tool bag, and left the battlefield where I'd toiled all day, drained in body and mind. Zhiqiu dragged herself along, feeling like she was about to fall apart, to her front door. Work had been especially hectic today. She felt completely drained. All she wanted was to kick off her high heels and collapse into that soft pile of clothes. She slipped her key into the lock and gently turned it. Click! The door opened. That familiar blend of overnight takeout and perfume did not hit her in the face as expected. Instead, a fresh, cool lemon fragrance drifted out. Zhiqiu's raised foot froze in midair. Is this my home? As if shocked by electricity, she quickly pulled her foot back. Full of suspicion, she looked up to check the apartment number. 1704. That was right. It was my royal doghouse. No. My palace, my blessed little haven. She cautiously leaned half her body inside again. Her eyes flew wide open. The floor, once swallowed by clutter, was now spotless like new. It even clearly reflected her face, stunned by overwhelming shock. The mountain of clothes on the sofa had vanished. The sofa's finely textured fabric was finally visible. She had nearly forgotten her coffee table was made of transparent glass. She looked like a country bumpkin entering a palace for the first time. She tiptoed farther inside, trembling carefully, afraid she might soil this clean haven that was both strange and familiar. She gasped in a low voice. Oh my God! Everywhere she looked was clean. Everything was in order. She rushed into the bedroom. The bed, once a total mess, had been made perfectly smooth. Even the creases at the corners of the blanket looked carefully designed. Her fingertips trembling, she opened the closet. Inside, her clothes were sorted by color, by season, and hung by category with meticulous precision. Even her little cartoon print panties, and her sexy lace ones, were neatly folded in their designated compartments. They smelled fresh of sunshine and laundry detergent. She cried out and covered her cheeks. A searing rush of heat shot from her feet to the top of her head. The kitchen was even more unbelievable. The stove top gleamed. The spotless range hood reflected her adorably stunned face. The mountain of dishes in the sink had vanished. The drying rack was pristine. Had a magical house fairy appeared? Or was some guy at work with a crush on me trying to impress me? Wait a second. There were only two keys. One was with me. The other was with. Just as her brain was about to overload, her gaze landed on the unnaturally clean coffee table in the living room. A sticky note stood out. She walked over and picked it up. The handwriting had a surprisingly carefree flair. Such a nice home. And look what you've done to it. Even a thief like me couldn't stand it. I started cleaning when you left for work. It took all day to finish. I am completely wiped out. I took the 1,000 yuan in your drawer as payment. If you really do not have time in the future, remember to hire a cleaner. A thief? Zhiqiu suddenly snapped back to her senses. She rushed into the bedroom. She yanked open the nightstand drawer. Sure enough, the loose cash inside was gone. A chill shot from her feet to the top of her head. A thief had broken into her home. But what was wrong with this thief? He had not touched the valuable jewelry or electronics. He only took less than 2,000 yuan in cash. Then he gave her home a thorough, top-to-bottom deep clean. He even thoughtfully left a note lecturing her. Was something seriously wrong with this whole situation? She suddenly remembered the tiny camera hidden in the living room plant. She hurriedly pulled out her phone and opened the footage. She fast-forwarded the footage. On screen, a tall, well-built man appeared shortly after she left, skillfully opening her door lock. Zhiqiu's heart tightened. There he was. After the man entered, his reaction was exactly like hers had been. He was clearly stunned. The camera even caught the flash of shock across his face, and an indescribable sense of utter despair. Then, an absurd scene unfolded. He did not immediately start rummaging for valuables. Instead, he stood there with his hands on his hips, drawing a steadying breath as he faced her pigsty of a home. Then, as if making up his mind, he set his small bag by the door. And then, the camera faithfully recorded, a live miracle of housekeeping. He cleared the trash, wiped the counters, mopped the floor, and sorted the clothes. His movements were crisp and efficient, yet meticulous in every detail, especially when she saw the man on the footage, brow tightly furrowed, still carefully hand-washing the intimate items she had carelessly tossed around, including her lace panties. Zhiqiu's cheeks instantly flushed to her ears. This was so humiliating. Yet, for some reason, as she watched the screen, that stranger, drenched in sweat, would grimace in utter disgust at a stubborn stain one moment. Then, after conquering some neglected filthy corner, would give a small, satisfied nod in profile the next. She nearly burst out laughing. Yet an indescribable ripple stirred in her heart. The way he focused on the housework, his sharply defined profile, the firm muscles outlined in his every movement, especially whenever he bent down, the faint lines of his abs that appeared whenever he bent down. Stop. What are you even thinking? He is a thief. The final frame of the footage froze on the moment the man turned and left, cash in hand. Zhiqiu curled up on the sofa, clutching her phone. Her heart was beating a little too fast, out of rhythm. It was as if her mind had been set to repeat. The scene kept replaying beyond her control. A handsome, stylish man, with a bizarre obsession with housekeeping, had crashed into her world in the most absurd way. The more she thought about it, the hotter her cheeks burned. The more she remembered, the faster her heart pounded. After a long while, she took a deep breath, trying to calm her restless heart and burning cheeks. Then, she silently made up her mind. Her slender, pale fingers trembled slightly as she picked up her phone and unlocked the screen. Her voice carried a barely detectable mix of embarrassed irritation and excitement. Hello. Police. I need to report a crime. A very strange thief broke into my home. After leaving Zhiqiu's home, night had already fallen over the streets. I wandered over to the snack street. I had that 1,000+ yuan in my pocket, yet it felt as though my pocket were dragging me down. Not from the weight of the cash, but from the heaviness in my heart. This job had been a complete loss. If word got out, the other thieves would laugh their heads off. Exhausted in body and mind, I was starving. When I spotted old Chen's familiar noodle shop on the corner, my feet moved faster than my brain, and I headed straight inside. Boss, a large bowl of beef noodles, with extra meat and an egg. I slapped the money onto the grease-slick table. Even my voice carried the hollow exhaustion of a day spent cleaning. Old Chen answered without missing a beat. Coming right up. Xiaowei. You look completely worn out today. I gave a vague grunt in reply, then slumped into a seat in the corner. The shop was filled with the rich aroma of bone broth and the lively warmth of street life. Only then did I vaguely feel that I had finally retreated from Zhiqiu's battlefield to the real world. My noodles soon arrived. I grabbed my chopsticks and stirred them, blew on the steam, and was about to take a bite. Just then, several uniformed police officers burst inside. Do not move. Before I could react, my arms were violently wrenched behind my back. With a sharp click, cold handcuffs locked tightly round my wrist. The noodles hanging from my chopsticks dropped back into the bowl, splattering a few drops of oil. Every customer in the noodle shop stared in stunned silence, their eyes all turning toward me. My head buzzed, then went completely blank. Getting caught was inevitable in this line of work. After all, if you keep walking by the river, your shoes are bound to get wet. But how had it happened so soon? The camera. That was it. It had to be the camera. Zhiqiu must have hidden cameras in her apartment. I had been so busy cleaning, I had forgotten the most essential instinct of my profession. What is your name? A young officer interrogated me with a stern expression. Zhang Wei. I hung my head, my face burning. It was not because I had been arrested. It was because getting caught like this was damned humiliating. Were you the one who broke into apartment 1704 at Lijingyuan this afternoon? He pressed on. Yes. I admitted it. The camera had probably captured everything clearly. They had caught me red-handed. There was no point denying it. 2 officers hauled me out of the noodle shop and shoved me into a police car. Through the car window, I saw passers-by outside pointing and whispering. And old Chen's face, caught between shock and pity. It was over. This time, I was completely finished. Burglary. The amount involved was not large, but it was still enough to land me in deep trouble. My mother was still in the hospital, waiting for money. I really was useless, sitting in the interrogation room beneath painfully glaring lights. I gave them the whole story, exactly as it happened, including how I picked the lock and got inside. How the sight before me had stunned me. How I had inexplicably started deep cleaning the place. How I took the 1,895 yuan as payment for my work. And how I left a note calling her a slob. The officer taking my statement listened. His expression was a sight to behold. He clearly wanted to laugh, but barely held it in. Zhang Wei, while committing burglary, did you suddenly decide to play the Good Samaritan? I replied with a miserable expression. Officer, I just could not leave it alone. I could not stand seeing such a filthy mess. I did not spend a single yuan of the money. It is still in my pocket. I will return every last cent. Whatever punishment you give me, I will accept it. Once the procedures were complete, I was temporarily held in a detention cell. Lying on the rock-hard bunk, I stared blankly at the ceiling. My thoughts churned like a stormy sea. I felt every emotion imaginable. The next morning, I was sitting there pondering my life, when the supervising officer walked over. Zhang Wei, come out here. I assumed they were taking me in for questioning, so I followed with my head hanging low. Never in a million years did I expect that besides the uniformed officers in the visitor's room, there would be a woman standing there too. The air in the visitor's room was charged with an indescribable, delicate tension. I lowered my head to my chest, catching only a gentle silhouette from the corner of my eye. Zhiqiu wore a pale blue dress that day. Her long black hair fell softly over her shoulders. She stood beside an officer, with a trace of nervousness in her eyes. Yet there was also an unspoken hint of excitement. Zhang Wei, right? An older officer spoke first, after verifying the facts on our end, and speaking with Ms. Zhiqiu herself. There are a few matters we need to make clear to you. My heart suddenly clenched. I held my breath, waiting for the final verdict. First, under local regulations, the threshold for opening a criminal theft case is generally set at 2,000 yuan. The officer paused slightly, his gaze passing over me, before turning to Zhiqiu. The cash you took that day, Ms. Yi has confirmed, came to 1,895 yuan in total. That amount does not meet the threshold for opening a criminal case. Then, the officer's voice noticeably softened. Ms. Zhiqiu, after fully understanding what happened, voluntarily submitted a written letter of forgiveness. She stated that she will not pursue any action against you. I jerked my head up at that. I stared at Zhiqiu in utter disbelief. She happened to glance secretly my way as well. Our eyes collided in midair. Like a startled fawn, she quickly looked away. Most strangely, across her pale cheeks, a suspicious blush spread. I picked the lock on Zhiqiu's door and walked off with more than 1,000 yuan in cash. Not only was she refusing to press charges, she had even submitted a letter of forgiveness. Finally, the officer cleared his throat. He seemed to be struggling to keep a straight face. Your actions, although they constituted unlawful entry into another person's home with the intent to steal, were unusual in their actual execution. The circumstances were indeed quite exceptional, taking everything into account. This is your first offense, and you have shown sincere remorse, since the amount involved falls below the criminal filing threshold, and the victim has fully forgiven you. After deliberation, we have reached a final decision. For this incident, we will not open a criminal investigation. No criminal case. I would not face criminal charges. The enormous surprise crashed down on me, leaving me completely dazed. However, the officer's tone abruptly shifted. The law is no joke. Unlawfully entering another person's home is in itself an indisputable violation of the law, given the unusual nature of your actions and the potential disruption it could cause to public order. We have ultimately decided to impose 15 days of administrative detention. You will also receive legal education. We hope you reflect deeply on this. Hold your head high from now on, and live honestly and honorably. 15 days in detention, compared with the prison sentence I might have faced, felt like having a severe sentence reduced to a slap on the wrist. It was so light, I nearly floated away. I accept. I will reflect on it properly. Thank you, authorities. Thank you, officer. I nodded again and again. The boulder hanging over my heart finally settled firmly back into place. Once the paperwork was done, I followed the supervising officer toward the door, ready to report to the detention center. As I passed Zhiqiu, I still could not help myself. I stopped. With a storm of mixed emotions, I glanced at her. Well, Miss He. Thank you. The words came out of me awkwardly. I had no idea how to face the woman I had wronged. I broke into someone's home, yet ended up with no criminal case, plus a 15-day room and board legal education package. My situation was truly one of a kind. Absolutely one of a kind. Zhiqiu lifted her face. The blush on her cheeks had not fully faded. She quickly lowered her voice and said, Actually, I should be the one thanking you. You made my home so clean. It has never been so tidy before. Her voice grew softer and softer, barely louder than a whisper. The supervising officer beside us cleared his throat at just the right moment. I hurried after him. Yet inside, my emotions were all tangled up. Sweet, sour, bitter, spicy, and salty, all mixed together. This woman's way of thinking. How on earth did it work? The 15 days of detention passed in the blink of an eye. Each day, aside from studying laws and regulations, I spent all my remaining time reflecting on my life. I had finally figured it out. I could never return to a life of crime. I got unbelievably lucky this time. But what would happen next time? No one could say. Even for my mother lying in that hospital bed, I had to find honest work. The moment I stepped out of the detention center gates, the sunlight outside was almost painfully bright. I drew a deep breath of free air. I was ready to begin a new chapter in my life. But just as I reached the corner, a snow-white Porsche silently glided up beside me. The window slowly rolled down, revealing Zhiqiu's delicately made-up, pretty face, tinged with a faint blush. Zhang Wei, you're out? I froze where I stood. Every alarm in my head started blaring. What was this woman playing at? Miss He, you need something. Wasn't the case already settled? Why had she come looking for me again? Zhiqiu bit her lower lip, as if she had made up her mind about something huge. To celebrate you getting your freedom back, let me take you out for a meal. Consider it. Consider it my thanks for giving my place that deep clean last time. My eyes went wide. I almost thought I had misheard her. The victim wanted to treat her offender to dinner, because she was grateful he had cleaned the home he illegally entered. Miss He, isn't this a little inappropriate, what I did before? Oh, come on. Let's let bygones be bygones. I've already given you a letter of forgiveness. Just tell me, will you do me the honor or not? Her tone held a spoiled, stubborn insistence, but her eyes were full of hope. There was even a hint of certainty that made her impossible to refuse. Looking at her like that, it was as though she had cast a spell over me. Before I knew it, I nodded. Then, all right. Feeling awkward all over, I opened the passenger door and got in. The car was filled with the same fresh lemon scent that lingered in her home, mingled with the pleasant fragrance of her perfume. The seats were soft, and everything around me was comfortable. Yet I could not sit still. A man like me, freshly released from a cell, did not belong in this picture of a luxury car and a beautiful woman. The contrast could not have been more jarring. Zhiqiu seemed tense too. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, her focus fixed on the road. Only now and then, from the corner of her eye, would she dart a quick glance at me. Eventually, the car stopped in front of a restaurant that looked like an upscale private dining establishment. The surroundings were quiet and elegant, and the private room was exquisitely appointed. It was nothing like the lively little diners I usually frequented. They were worlds apart. As she looked through the menu, her eyes barely paused at the prices. She effortlessly named several dishes. Is there anything you do not eat? My answer was brief. Anything is fine. At a time like this, how could I spare a thought for the food? My mind was consumed by this bizarre situation. Once the dishes had all arrived, only the two of us remained in the private room. The strange tension in the air grew thicker. The table was covered in exquisitely presented delicacies, beautiful to look at and fragrant to smell, but they tasted like wax in my mouth. Miss He, why are you helping me? And why are you treating me to this meal? After all, The two words reached my lips, but I could not bring myself to say them. But she knew exactly what I meant. A faint blush rose to Yichiko's cheeks. With the tip of her chopsticks, she idly pushed rice grains around her bowl. Her voice was low. At first, I was really angry, and I really was frightened. But after I watched the security footage, I thought you were such a strange person. You did not seem like a bad man. She paused briefly, then raised her face, her bright eyes fixed on mine. Have you ever seen a thief spend an entire day deep cleaning the victim's home? And then leave a note lecturing the owner? Do you know how funny you looked, grimacing at those stubborn stains as you mopped? And how when you were sorting and folding my underwear by category, you looked both disgusted and intensely serious. It was hilarious. My face instantly felt like it had been set on fire. The blush spread from my neck to my forehead. She really had watched every second of the security footage, even those details. This was humiliating beyond belief. My obsessive-compulsive tendencies kicked in. I tried to offer a few more excuses, but Zhiqiu suddenly smiled. I know. That is why I think you're special. She placed some food in my bowl with her chopsticks. Her tone became more casual. Come to think of it, I should be thanking you. When I opened my door and saw how tidy everything was that day, it felt as though my days had become brighter. Also, I asked someone to look into you. I learned your mother is in the hospital, and that you're short on money. So, my heart clenched. I watched her warily. She investigated me. Don't get the wrong idea. I do not mean anything else by it. I just want to help you. Your mother's medical bills. I've already prepaid a sum into the hospital account. You do not need to worry about them for now. What? She had covered my mother's medical bills. Her words hit like an unexpected bomb, blasting my mind completely blank. No, I can't accept this money. We're not related. Besides, The words flew out before I could think. Zhiqiu cut me off. She leaned forward slightly, moving closer to me. Her warm, perfumed breath nearly brushed my cheek. Her voice turned soft and intimately suggestive. I told you, it's a loan. I'm not giving it to you for free. If it makes you feel better, you can pay me back slowly. How could I repay you? I instinctively wanted to say I could not even find a decent job, but when I looked up, I met her eyes just inches away. Her eyes shimmered with moisture, clearly reflecting my miserable state. That is easy. You can keep cleaning my place to pay off your debt. I've watched that skill of yours again and again. I was extremely satisfied. I'll give you 1,000 yuan per visit. How does that sound? 1,000 yuan per visit. That rate was far above the going market price. Besides, the words, clean my place, sounded different coming from her lips. With her standing so close, and that look in her eyes, they took on a completely different meaning. It no longer sounded like simple housework. My heart began pounding uncontrollably in my chest. My Adam's apple bobbed on its own. Countless tiny currents seemed to silently crackle through the air. The temperature in the private room seemed to rise several degrees. What exactly do you mean by that? She leaned back in her chair, lifted her wine glass, and gently swirled it. Exactly what I said. Yet her gaze remained locked firmly on me. After that thank-you dinner filled with strange tension, a very strange connection seemed to form between Zhiqiu and me. Every 3 or 4 days, a message from her would arrive right on schedule. The content was always the same, but her tone was utterly matter-of-fact. Zhang Wei, my place is a mess again. Come clean it up now. A money transfer was always attached to the end of the message. A full 1,000 yuan. Every time, I reminded myself, I was repaying a debt. It was honest work. But every time I used the key to open the door to apartment 1704, and faced a room that was not quite as disastrous as the first time, but was still a complete mess, an indescribable discomfort would always settle in my chest. What exactly was I to her? Her personal cleaner, or the object of some strange fetish of hers? When I cleaned, Zhiqiu was sometimes home, and sometimes she wasn't. Whenever she was home, she would curl up deep in the sofa, with a laptop on her knees as she handled work, or watched dramas. Every so often, her eyes would leave the screen, and follow me around the room. Her gaze did not feel like a supervisor inspecting my work. It was more like she was admiring something. It made my skin crawl. Even my mopping turned noticeably stiff and awkward. One time, I was battling a patch of old grease on the kitchen stove when she shuffled over in fluffy slippers. Zhang Wei, is cleaning all you know how to do? I'm hungry. I'm sick of takeout. Without even looking up, I snapped irritably. Then learn to cook if you're tired of takeout. But I don't know how. There was a hint of coquettish pleading in her voice. You're so capable at housework. You must be decent at cooking too, right? Show me what you've got. Maybe her tone provoked me. Or maybe I wanted to prove something deep down. But I somehow tossed aside my cleaning rag, washed my hands, and opened her refrigerator. It was well stocked with ingredients, probably bought recently. What do you want to eat? I tied on an apron, my tone still stiff. Anything. I'll eat whatever you make. That day, I used what was in the refrigerator to make a simple meal of 3 dishes and a soup: braised pork ribs, steamed sea bass, broccoli with garlic, and a bowl of tomato egg drop soup. They were all ordinary home-style dishes, but I got the heat and seasoning just right. Once I set the meal on the table, Zhiqiu took her first bite of ribs, and her eyes curved into crescents. Zhang Wei, this is delicious. She devoured the food, completely unconcerned with appearances. As she kept stuffing food into her mouth, she praised me through mouthfuls. This is better than anything a 5-star hotel chef could make. Your cooking is incredible. Watching her eat with such enjoyment, the reluctance inside me somehow faded a little. I even felt a faint, strange sense of accomplishment. After that meal, Zhiqiu called me over to clean more and more often, and the focus clearly shifted from cleaning to cooking. Then one day, I had just finished tidying the areas she'd assigned me, and was about to head for the kitchen, when she called me into the living room. Zhang Wei, I want to discuss something with you. Her voice held a smile. Look, you're excellent at cleaning. And your cooking is exactly to my taste. As for me, I happen to need someone reliable to handle my daily life. Stop doing odd jobs. Why not become my full-time live-in housekeeper? What do you say? Full-time. Live-in. That's right. 10,000 yuan a month, with room and board included. Your mother's medical bills, I'll cover them all. I'll pay until she has fully recovered. What do you think? With these terms, you have no reason to say no, right? A monthly salary over 10,000 yuan, and full coverage for my mother's medical bills. These terms went far beyond merely generous. It was a gift from heaven, landing right where I needed it most. I could not find a reason to refuse, and I did not want to. Okay. And so, I packed my things, and officially moved into Zhiqiu's guest room. I was instantly promoted from a temporary cleaner to a live-in housekeeper. The work was just as she had said: cleaning, cooking, and occasionally running errands for her. She was astonishingly generous with my pay. She even advanced my first month's salary, so I could send it home first. However, from the moment I moved into Zhiqiu's home, my initial delight at this windfall was soon replaced by an agony that worsened by the day. The source of that agony was Zhiqiu herself. It was as if she had completely given free rein to her true nature. Or rather, she had dropped every pretense around me. Her outfits at home became increasingly bold and casual. Silk slip dresses became her standard attire. The fabric was as thin as gossamer, clinging tightly to every curve of her shapely figure. I had never had a chance to look closely before, but now that we lived under the same roof, I realized her figure was almost unfairly perfect. She was like a wild rose growing untamed, vivid and unabashed, radiating an intoxicating fragrance. And I, her housekeeper in name, day after day, under such an overwhelming visual assault, struggled to maintain what little self-control I had left. I repeatedly reminded myself, Zhang Wei, you're here to work. She's the employer who pays you. She is covering your mother's medical bills. Do not entertain thoughts you should not have. So, I did my best to play a competent housekeeper who saw nothing and felt nothing. Whenever she passed before me in skimpy clothes, I immediately lowered my head and focused on wiping the table. Whenever she bent to pick something up, revealing tempting curves, I immediately turned to check the heat of the stove flame. But Zhiqiu seemed determined to test the limits of my self-control, gleefully testing my limits again and again. Time passed amid my awkwardness as her live-in housekeeper and her carefree ease. silently turning the pages of the calendar. One weekend afternoon, she came out of her bedroom, already dressed. Zhang Wei. Come on, come out with me. Where are we going? To see a movie. A co-worker gave me the tickets. We might as well use them. We arrived at the cinema, collected the tickets, and went inside. We found our seats and settled in. Only when the lights dimmed and the eerie opening score began to play did I belatedly realize it was a horror movie. I instinctively turned my head and glanced at Zhiqiu beside me. The ghostly light from the screen fell across her face, flickering between light and shadow. The film moved at a frantic pace, with jump scares one after another. Whenever a ghost appeared on screen or the sound exploded without warning, Zhiqiu would jolt violently and suck in a sharp breath. Before 20 minutes had passed, she had unconsciously edged over from her seat toward mine, her arm pressed tightly against mine, sending a faint tremor through me. Hey. Are you okay? I'm fine. She tried to sound tough, but her voice was clearly trembling. It's just a little cold. The air conditioning was indeed set low, but I had a feeling she was more scared than cold. Then an especially bloody image flashed across the screen, accompanied by a character's piercing scream. Zhiqiu let out a soft cry. She suddenly shrank toward me, then buried herself in my arms. Her warm, fragrant, soft body crashed into my arms without warning. Her lovely scent mixed with the cloying sweetness of cinema popcorn, rushing straight into my nose. My body instantly froze. My arms hung in midair, and I did not know where to put them. My mind went blank. All I could feel was her trembling body in my arms. The sensation startlingly clear. Scared. If you're scared, don't watch it. No. We can't waste the tickets. She buried her face in my chest and answered in a muffled voice, but showed no intention of leaving my arms. So, for the second half of the movie, she spent nearly all of it curled up in my arms. I had basically become a giant human body pillow. I did not dare move. In the end, my arms loosely circled behind her, carefully, afraid of touching somewhere I should not. I did not take in a single frame of the movie. Every one of my senses was consumed by the woman in my arms. Her hair brushed against my chin, making it itch. Her breath warmed my skin through the fabric. Her softness pressed against me. This was the sweetest torture in the world. When the lights suddenly came on after the movie, she sprang from my arms as if burned. Her cheeks were flaming red. Let's go. She stood up first, almost fleeing in panic. I drew a deep breath, forcing down the turmoil in my chest, and followed her. On the way home, a delicate silence filled the car. She gripped the steering wheel, focused on driving, while I watched the night rush past outside the window. But the soft sensation of her body in my arms and my pounding heartbeat lingered for a long time. I thought that would be the end of it. But, in the middle of the night, as I slept in a daze, there came a soft knock at my bedroom door. Zhang Wei. Are you asleep? Zhiqiu's slightly fearful voice came from outside. I dragged myself out of bed and opened the door. She wore that nearly transparent silk slip dress, with a thin robe thrown loosely over it. She held a pillow against her chest, standing barefoot in the doorway. Her eyes were slightly red-rimmed, like a frightened rabbit. I'm a little scared. The scenes from that movie keep replaying in my head. I can't sleep. Could I sleep on the floor in here? Looking at her pitiful expression, then at her outfit that was practically nothing, I felt my temples pounding. Letting her sleep on my floor? What would people think? A man and a woman alone, like dry tinder near a flame. But she was the one funding me, the one paying my wages, and covering my mother's medical bills. She was terrified right now, and this was only a small request. I took a deep breath. You take the bed. I'll sleep on the floor. How can I let you do that? There's no reason I can't. My tone was firm, as I pulled spare bedding from the closet. You're my employer. How can I let my employer sleep on the floor? She silently watched as I quickly spread the bedding across the floor. Then, thank you, she finally murmured. She quietly climbed onto my bed. I turned off the overhead light, leaving only the dim yellow glow of the bedside lamp. Then I quickly curled up under the blankets on the floor, with my back to the bed, my eyes squeezed tightly shut. Zhang Wei. Her voice drifted over from the bed. There was the faintest nasal note in her voice. Good night. The bedroom fell silent again. Only our soft breaths rose and fell in turn. I could even hear her subtle movements as she turned in bed. The rustle of fabric seemed magnified several times over in the still night. I don't know how long I endured it, before exhaustion and taut nerves finally overwhelmed me, and I fell into a deep sleep. In my dream, I seemed to return to my childhood. I held the old orange tabby my family had raised for years. Its fur was fluffy all over, and it was warm. It carried the scent of sun-warmed fur. It nestled comfortably in the crook of my arm, purring contentedly. I instinctively tightened my arms, drawing that soft, warm bundle closer. My cheek brushed its velvety head. An unprecedented sense of peace and contentment wrapped around me. This dream, it truly was wonderful. After that night we shared a room. The boundary between Zhiqiu and me grew increasingly blurred and delicate. It was as though she'd found a new source of amusement. She began dragging me out on weekends far more often. She called it experiencing life, saying we couldn't stay cooped up indoors forever. Yet beneath every outing ran an undercurrent of unspoken flirtation. At art exhibitions, she would wear a tight, figure-hugging skirt. When I bent down to study the exhibit descriptions, she would lean down at just the right moment. At newly opened luxury boutiques, when she tried on dresses with eye-watering price tags, she would always pull back a corner of the fitting room curtain. Zhang, does this look good on me? Those frequent dates, along with our daily life under the same roof, let me see beyond the surface of who she was. When she was in a good mood, she would occasionally tell me things about herself. Gradually, I pieced together her background. She was a typical rich heiress. Her father had once run a sizable company, and her family had been wealthy. But life is unpredictable. Several years ago, her father developed a terminal illness, for reasons unknown. Before he died, he sold off most of the company's shares, leaving behind ample assets, enough for her and her mother to live comfortably for the rest of their lives. Her mother was devastated, and now spent most of the year traveling to clear her mind, rarely returning home. As for Zhiqiu herself, she had long grown tired of glamorous parties and high society networking. She found it all dull, so she casually took an easy administrative job, simply to pass the time. Then why didn't you hire a cleaner before? Or hire a proper housekeeper? At last, I voiced the question I'd kept buried for so long. Given her family background, finding a professional domestic worker would have been effortless. Why let the place fall into such a state? And why seek out an amateur thief like me? At my question, Zhiqiu paused as she arranged the lilies I'd just bought in a vase. She turned toward me, a smile appearing on her lips. Someone hired from outside could never be as thoughtful as you. There was a touch of self-mockery in that smile, along with something I could not quite name. Her tone was light, her gaze slowly gliding over my face. In the end, she never gave me a real answer. The days quietly passed amid my conflicted feelings as her live-in housekeeper, and Zhiqiu's increasingly bold advances. Until my birthday arrived, I had nearly forgotten the day myself. But that morning, I received a birthday message from my mother. As a bittersweet feeling rose in my chest, Zhiqiu sidled up to me mysteriously. Zhang, the weather is lovely today. Don't stay cooped up at home. Come out with me. Before I could say a word, she dragged me out the door. That outing lasted from first light until dusk. It was as though she'd prepared a flawless itinerary in advance. Every moment was packed, yet every detail was thoughtfully planned. We went to the tech exhibition I had always wanted to see, but could never bring myself to pay for. Then we had an unbelievably exquisite lunch at a rooftop revolving restaurant. That afternoon, she even dragged me into the arcade I had loved most as a child. She was adorably clumsy at the shooting game, and had absolutely no rhythm on the drum machine. But when she laughed, no one was more carefree or radiant. She looked just like a high school girl who had skipped class for the day. As the sun dipped low, both my hands were loaded with shopping bags. Almost all of them were spoils from her shopping spree. My legs ached so badly they barely felt like my own. What do you want for dinner? It's on me. You pick the restaurant. As I looked at the city lights flickering on before us, an indescribable weariness and a certain longing rose in my heart at once. How about we eat at home tonight? I'll cook for you. Zhiqiu froze for a moment, then her eyes curved into crescents. Sure. Let's eat at home. Let's go buy groceries. We turned into a nearby supermarket. She pushed the cart, like a child fascinated by everything around her. Whenever she saw an ingredient that interested her, she tossed it in. Can you make this? What about that? I want to try your specialty. In the end, In the end, we carried several bulging bags of groceries and returned to apartment 1704. In the kitchen, I tied on an apron and got to work at the stove. For once, she did not curl up on the couch. Instead, she brought over a bar stool and sat beside the kitchen island, resting her chin in her hands, quietly watching me, washing vegetables, chopping ingredients, tossing the wok, seasoning the dishes. I focused entirely on the stove. All she could hear was the rhythmic chop of my knife against the cutting board, the sizzle of oil in the pan, and my occasional request, "Pass me that plate, okay? Get me a scallion." Coming, like a diligent little bee, she eagerly helped me out. Warm yellow light enveloped us, filling the room with the comfort and peace I had never known before. By the time the final soup came off the stove, the table was covered with 9 beautiful, fragrant dishes. Zhiqiu somehow produced a bottle of red wine that looked expensive. She deftly uncorked it and poured the wine into a decanter. Smiling, she poured me a glass, then filled her own glass to the brim. "You've worked hard, chef." Looking at the feast spread across the table, then at the radiant face across from me, some corner of my heart seemed soaked in warm water and went completely soft. This feeling of home, I had not felt it in a very long time. But just as I picked up my chopsticks, ready to enjoy this extraordinary birthday dinner, Zhiqiu reached out and gently pressed down on my wrist. Her eyes gleamed with mischief and anticipation. "There is one most important part left. Your birthday gift." I was stunned. "But today has already. None of that counts." She cut me off, rose to her feet, then pulled me to the living room sofa and pressed me down to sit. "Sit here. Close your eyes. No peeking." Her voice held a sweetly imperious note that left no room for argument. I obediently closed my eyes. I was curious and amused at once, wondering what new trick this young lady had up her sleeve. I heard her light footsteps heading toward the bedroom. Then came the soft click of the bedroom door closing. Each second crawled by. The living room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. What on earth was she up to? Just as I could barely resist opening my eyes to sneak a look, a faint, tinkling chime of ornaments drifted over. It came with a soft, delicate, elegant fragrance utterly unlike her usual perfume. "You can open your eyes now." Her voice sounded, threaded with barely concealed nerves and shyness. I slowly opened my eyes. In that instant, my breath caught. My heart skipped a full beat. In the living room's soft glow, Zhiqiu stood quietly before me. She had changed into an exquisitely lavish Hanfu gown. A pale blue, high-waisted raccoon dress, made of the finest silk, was embroidered with subtle, intricate scrolling lotus patterns. Her wide sleeves hung like clouds, and her skirts flowed to the floor like water. Her raven black hair was swept into an elegant bun, with a few loose strands falling beside her cheeks. They made her skin look even whiter than snow. Her brows and eyes looked painted into perfection. Usually she was either alluring or playfully sweet, but now she seemed like a lady stepping out of an ancient painting, graceful and ethereal, surrounded by an otherworldly, celestial air. Seeing me stare in a daze, she pressed her lips together in a gentle smile. A faint blush spread across her cheeks. "Zhang Wei, happy birthday. I'll dance for you. Consider it my birthday gift." With that, she gave me no time to react. She lowered her head slightly, her slender hand forming an elegant gesture. The melody of ancient music slowly filled the room, and her body unfolded in graceful motion. Her flowing sleeves swept like drifting clouds, like mist over mountains, like a thin veil of fog. Her skirts rippled outward, like a dream, like an illusion. Her steps were not especially polished, and some turns were even a little awkward. But her undivided focus, her wholehearted devotion, and the tender affection lingering in her glances were more moving than any flawless display of skill. As she spun, her dark hair and robes flew together, like a blue lotus blooming beneath the moon at its fullest. When she glanced back, her eyes seemed to speak, yet held back. They brimmed with starlight, and the reflection of my own dazed, spellbound face. Fine food and wine were laid out beside us, while a beauty in Hanfu danced for me, and me alone. At that moment, thief, servant, employer, every barrier between our identities faded away. I sank into the sofa, watching the dreamlike scene before me, an utterly unreal, yet overwhelmingly intense feeling rose in my chest. Zhang Wei, what had I ever done to deserve this? It was as if I possessed the fortune of an emperor, and this peerless beauty before me, like an imperial consort. Her gaze, from beginning to end, rested on no one but me. The dance ended as she gave a slight bow, then shyly raised her eyes. The living room fell silent again. Only our slightly hurried breaths remained, and the unspoken, simmering tension already filling the room. She stood where she was, her cheeks flushed red, her chest rising and falling gently. She looked at me with equal parts boldness and shyness, and softly asked, "Zhang Wei, do you like it?" As I looked at the woman before me, ethereal as a celestial being, her luminous eyes fixed on mine, my heart thundered in my chest. "I do." My voice was unbearably hoarse. "I like it very much." Zhiqiu's eyes lit up at once, as though countless stars had fallen into them. The rosy color on her cheeks deepened. She gracefully moved to the seat across from me. "Then let's eat. Let's try Chef Zhang's cooking." "All right. Let's eat." I lifted my wine glass and gently clinked it against hers. That crisp chime of glass seemed like a silent signal, opening the curtain on a night destined to be anything but ordinary. The food was truly delicious. I had put my whole heart into it. Every dish was one of my best. As we ate, we talked about visiting the exhibition that day, and the fun we had playing video games. The mood was easy and cheerful. She kept refilling my glass. In the glow of the lights and wine, her beautiful eyes shimmered like rippling water, bewitching my soul. The red wine was rich and smooth, with mellow notes of fruit and oak. I had always held my liquor well. Normally, I could put away half a liter to a full liter of strong liquor without trouble. But for some reason, after only a few glasses of red wine tonight, an unnaturally fierce wave of drunkenness surged up from my stomach. My head grew heavy and foggy, and a haze clouded my vision. Zhiqiu's radiant face across from me seemed softened by a glowing filter, making her beauty seem even less real. It felt as though someone had lit a fire inside me, leaving my mouth parched and my throat dry. My heartbeat fell completely out of rhythm. I shook my head, trying to clear my head, but the dizziness only grew worse. "What's wrong, Zhang Wei? Did you drink too much?" Concern filled Zhiqiu's voice. She leaned closer, her warm breath brushing my ear. I looked up at her and met her eyes, inches from mine. In those eyes, the earlier shyness and anticipation had somehow vanished. In their place was a triumphant, ever-deepening, sly smile. She looked just like a cat that had stolen a fish. Something was wrong. This wine had been tampered with. The thought flashed through my muddled mind like lightning. But it was already too late. A crushing weakness swept through every limb. I tried to push myself to my feet, but only swayed helplessly. My arms were too limp even to lift. "You." Then my vision began to spin. In the instant before my consciousness plunged into darkness, through my blurred vision, I saw Zhiqiu rise to her feet. Her cheeks were flushed with shyness and the certainty of getting what she wanted. Her delicate hand moved to her waist, undoing the ties of her exquisite Hanfu. The smooth skin of her shoulders glowed softly beneath the lights. She bent close, her sweetly scented fingers brushing my burning forehead. A soft whisper fell beside my ear. "Zhang Wei." The last thing I saw was the triumphant curve at her lips, a smile both shy and bold. Then consciousness sank fully into darkness. When I woke again, the harsh sunlight outside the window was blinding. My head felt like it was splitting apart. Frowning, I forced my eyes open. My blurred vision slowly came into focus. An unfamiliar crystal chandelier overhead. Beneath me lay incredibly soft bedding. This was not the guest room where I had slept. Realizing something, I suddenly turned my head. Zhiqiu lay beside me, fast asleep. Her glossy black hair spread over the pillow like seaweed. Her long lashes rested quietly like butterfly wings. At some point, the brocade quilt had slipped to her waist, revealing her naked, rounded shoulders and delicate collarbones. My mind exploded. My entire body went rigid. I even stopped breathing. Broken memories of last night came flooding into my mind. Her graceful dance, the unnatural drunkenness, the ties she had undone, and in the darkness, the blurred, burning memory of us together. Just then, the woman beside me let out a soft murmur and slowly woke. When she met my shocked, helpless gaze, she froze for a moment, then a deep blush rushed to her cheeks. Instinctively, she pulled the covers higher, hiding her chin, leaving only her dewy eyes visible. They blinked as she looked at me. There was shyness in her gaze, and panic, along with a trace of barely perceptible mischief. Zhang Wei. Ever since the day you helped me clean, I decided to make you take responsibility from me for the rest of your life.